Okay, Lewis. I guess you're in Ireland, but it's morning for me. So thanks for joining me this morning. The floor is yours. Please tell me about your startup, Bionic Gym, and all the amazing work you're doing.
Connor, good morning to you, and nice to be here. Thank you. We're based in Dublin, Ireland, and we're a bionic gym. And what we do is we essentially hijack people's bodies and we make it do what we want. So, in essence, we're a form of electrical stimulation. We send little impulses through wraps that go around people's thighs, and this contracts the muscle. But we've developed technology such that it's extraordinarily effective. And this enables us to do lots of things which couldn't really be done before. So I can exercise is a key to health, and people want to look good and people want to lose weight, etc. And exercise is key for kind of feeling good and looking good and being healthy. So this is where we're targeting. And when I say we can exercise people, I mean it really. I can get my heart rate up to 180 beats per minute. I'm sweating, I'm breathless. I've done the equivalent of running a marathon, and now hundreds of people have. Equivalent of doing a marathon on my couch watching TV. I've trained for a marathon with no actual running, and then I went out and ran one with my legs, like everybody else. So we've extraordinary technology. The base technology, electrical stimulation, has been around for generations, but never really wasn't developed enough to really deliver on its promise. And that's what we're doing now. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a great intro. Can you give an idea for the audience what the product looks like? Is it something you wear? Is it this big bulky thing you have to put on, or what exactly is that experience like for the someone using
uh,
it?
I should have had one to show like this. Unfortunately, I'll have to show you like this. Uh,
Hmm.
I have it on at low intensities at the moment. This is a control unit. It sits on wraps that just go around your thigh, and you have an app on your phone. Okay, it's give me a. Okay, I'll just restart it there. That's the app that controls the control unit, and then the wrap sends little impulses that target particular type of muscle fibers, or particular nerves that go to particular types of muscle fibers. And we just have a very sophisticated kind of way of doing this, which enables us to recruit a lot more muscle fibers. But in essence, it's a physical product you control from your phone. You can have it on at low intensities, like what I have now. And, I can write emails, I can do a podcast, suddenly play video games. Uh, and that way is the way a lot of people use it. And they just use it to burn kind of a few extra, hundreds of extra calories in their day. It's a really sugar hungry form of exercise as well. So that has some physiological benefits. Maybe we'll come back to that later. But that's sort of kind of a low intensity is what you see now. It's not much exercise to me anyway. It's kind of like maybe the equivalent of walking. But,
Hmm.
if you're walking for 4 or 5 hours extra a day, especially if it's after meals and stuff like that, that can have real great benefits for the body. Or of course, you can just kind of increase the intensity, and maybe later on we'll do this, and you can get breathless, you can begin sweating, the heart will race. Proper exercise.
Hmm. So, what does it feel like for you right now at low intensity? Is there any discomfort, or what do you notice on your leg or your body?
I'm just a kind of like at 20-25% intensity. So for me, I can just kind of ignore this entirely. I'd sometimes forget about it that I had it on. Um, and but at higher levels, it becomes intrusive. Uh, and so at these levels, you don't really feel any skin sensations, or certainly once you're used to it. For the first 2 or 3 weeks, people kind of need to get used to it. Their body needs to habituate. The nervous system kind of adapts, and then you kind of forget about it. In the same way as when you put your shirt on in the morning, for a few seconds you feel it, and then you no longer feel it. You can just ignore it. Or if you live beside a railway track and trains are going by, you learn to ignore the trains. So, but at higher intensities, it becomes because it's exercise, you begin feeling two things. One is contractions get stronger. and more vigorous. And we contract kind of the full lower body from kind of the glutes, the kind of butt muscles, all the way down to the calf muscles. And so it becomes progressively more intrusive. And so you wouldn't be kind of doing a podcast, or you wouldn't be doing a something important for work at higher levels. You just wouldn't be able to. But at intermediary levels, it's kind of very good. You can play video games. At the higher levels, I generally would just kind of watch TV, or browse on the internet or something like that.
What is the recommended use, right? I mean, is it safe or recommended for someone to consistently wear it at that 20 to 25% intensity, or do you recommend something else?
It very much depends upon your objective. So we have this kind of we have a base technology, a bit like kind of exercise. How would you recommend exercise? Well, it's obviously very different if you're an elite athlete, or if you're someone in a spinal cord injury. And so it depends upon your objective. So most people want to lose weight, and for that group of people, we say do it in two ways. One is you need to build up a huge amount of calorie burn, calorie deficit. And obviously, we tell people to diet as well. And this is particularly good with kind of a intermittent fasting and a kind of keto or low carb type diet because of physiology. But if you just burn an extra 200-300 calories per hour, and you're doing this for 4 or 6 hours, day after day, that cumulative effect is enormous. Particularly effective if you use it in the evening time after your last meal and you don't eat anything else. We deplete your glycogen reserves, your reserves of sugar in the body. And so this has kind of great physiological benefits. But we also tell people too that they need kind of great hormonal changes as well. And these are the changes that kind of occur with kind of intense exercise. So we want to get your lactate levels up. We want to get you breathless. We want to get your adrenaline rushing. That kind of will increase your heart rate as well. And these kind of hormonal changes just make it much easier to kind of maintain your weight and maintain an ideal weight, and just to kind of feel good. And once you get kind of quite fit with it, it's just like anything in life. When you're fit, life is a little bit easier. And you're also more likely to enjoy exercise if you've been doing some intense exercise. So, I mean, the irony of it is those who need exercise most enjoy it least. Whereas, you can get addicted to this if you use it at high intensities. And I get a bit kind of tetchy sometimes if I go a week without it. I'm kind of itching to get back to it, in the same way as a kind of a marathon runners after the marathon, if they lounge for a while, just need to get out and run again.
Can we back up a little bit, and can you just repeat again, if you use it 2 to 3 hours a day, what kind of calorie deficit or calories burned that equates to?
It is more or less a linear relationship with the intensity in terms of kind of calories. The heart rate is a bit blunted at lower intensities. So, but if we talk in terms of calories, for me, I'm using it here. It's probably an extra 200 calories per hour while I'm talking to you. Now, 200 calories isn't very much, but if I do it for 4 or 5 hours, 800 to 1,000 calories is a lot. So that for me might be kind of the equivalent of, 10-mile run or something like that. So that's a significant, 10 miles running is a significant amount of calories. So that's the kind of way we tell people to kind of build it up, but they really need to be using it as, a decent intensity. And then sometimes it's having kind of increased intensity just to train new muscles in, get your kind of body used to a higher level of exercise as well. Once you're in the same way as it's kind of, if you can run a marathon, walking is just so easy. Whereas if all you can do is walk, you might find that a strain. So we do encourage people to kind of go up in intensities as well. And then they develop new norms, and their calories would be the would increase as well, the calorie burn. The
Hmm.
capacity to burn these calories just increases. And in terms of kind of like if you were to leave it on all day, we've had some people, like I remember there was a fascinating girl, woman. She was working, I think she was a welder or something like that. She had some kind of somewhat techie job in the Arctic Ocean on a research vessel. So she'd be outside in the Arctic in winter, and she used to use this basically to keep herself warm. But she'd be using it basically all day long while she was working on this research vessel. And the chef then on the vessel, used to just have to pile on more and more food onto her because she'd be burning 5,000 or 6,000 calories per day. And she wasn't a particularly tall woman either. So she was just able to get very fit, and then it's equivalent of of jogging all the time she was working, and she was doing this because was keep herself warm, get fit, feel a bit fresh, and she's obviously a very driven woman as well. We have a post about her on our website, but a fascinating character.
Does that, so like that scenario, obviously that's an extreme. Does that, using the device for that long, does it come with fatigue, or what does that feel like? I mean, if you're walking all day, you walk for 8 hours, you're spent, you're tired, you're ready to pass out. I mean, is it a similar experience?
Certainly, if you increase intensity, we can certainly, especially some of our research parameters, you're just completely flogged after it. And it's just completely exhausting. Where we tend to be, someone like yourself, myself, we could walk all day long and not really tired, 6 to 10 hours walk at kind of a normal pace. If we eat a little bit along the way, that's kind of no great shakes. So we're kind of in that level unless you increase intensity. Whereas like I couldn't run all day long. All right, I couldn't even jog all day long. It just gets tiring. My body is probably more optimized for this. So I have in the past, I've done kind of the equivalent of kind of jogging for basically whole weekend. I was in some research for a TV program at one stage. And I basically had it on for 48 hours to observe a particular I was fasting as well. That makes it a lot harder. So I was fasting for 48 hours. I was using this at, my heart rate was basically around 130 beats per minute all day long, and all day long the following day. So that's kind of jogging equivalent for myself. My resting heart rate, I think it's up in the it's around low 50s now, around 51, 52. But back then it would have been in the 40s, so kind of very, very fit. And my the heart rate would be to 145, 130s level thereabouts for all day long one day, all day long the following day.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
that's really interesting. So I'm pretty intrigued by this as you tell me more. I would imagine the audience is too, but something that's coming to mind, right? And you've probably heard of this, is I don't know the exact name, but products in the past, like an ab belt where it kind of like shakes your abs. And so how do I feel like your product will be looped in with those types of products. How do you differentiate between those? And is it like that? Is this too good to be true? Because you've explained how it works and you're actually burning calories, you're actually exercising by wearing it. But I don't know. It just seems like you'd be met with skepticism. So how have you dealt with that as the inventor, founder of this technology?
Um, yeah, this has been our key issue, our key problem. People think it's too good to be true. And then we have another group of people who just think it's a complete miracle that you can can put it on at these levels and magically lose weight. We burn off all that weight. And if you want to train with it, we train you up by proper exercise. How do we deal with? Well, we've got an awful lot of research, so proper controlled studies, trials with kind of gold standard measurement techniques, published in peer-reviewed journals, with kind of lots of high-flying professors over here in Europe, and so we have that kind of scientific underpinning and foundation. But what generally works for people is actually just showing them. People know the characteristics of exercise, like those app belts that you're describing. Like, people are skeptical of them, and they kind of wonder, well, how will this work? And but when they see Bionic Gym in full action, if you're sweating and you're breathless and you have a heart rate monitor on, they'll it's kind of, oh yeah, that's what exercise does. That's okay. It must do that. And then the question becomes: is it for them? Is it affordable? Is it? Would they enjoy it? And those are better conversations for us once we get over that credibility hurdle. But yeah, it's credibility is the key thing for us.
Yeah, and I'm curious, maybe you can kind of speak to your sales channels. Are you just selling direct to consumer, just online? I also think I saw on your LinkedIn profile, your website, that you received FDA approval. So I'm curious about that process. I'm thinking a little bit about this, like from a healthcare perspective. And sorry, these are a lot of questions, so maybe we could back up and split them up. But from a healthcare perspective, are you looking at targeting, I guess, physicians or healthcare systems that could, I don't know, prescribe this, or potentially have it act as like a durable medical equipment, as a weight control, an option to control weight and in chronic conditions like diabetes and obesity. So sorry, a lot to unpack there, but I'm curious of who you're trying to sell this to and through what channels, and maybe forward looking as well.
Well, at the moment, our channels are purely web. So at bionicgym.com, that's where it's the only place for people to get it at the moment. We're not in retail, we're not elsewhere. We don't go through any other channels at the moment. In relation to kind of specific questions in relation to distribution via doctors or prescription via doctors and medical applications, and also the FDA clearance. So the FDA clearance it's a really arduous process for a kind of a small company. It's just difficult, slow, meticulous. They do their homework, the FDA, and they make sure you have all your ducks in line before they'll give you their stamp. And it's a challenging thing, and you're quite limited in what you can say then. So we put this in as a kind of essentially an exercise and training device, and we're allowed to make claims in really so we've got some incredible study results, which are wonderful, but we're not able to leverage them all because we're really only allowed to claim some of the benefits of exercise. So what we do is we can say kind of exercise decreases your blood glucose levels, and we can show people's blood glucose levels, if they're raised, if they're diabetic or something, the blood glucose level coming down. And we can say exercise decreases your blood glucose levels, but we can't say it's a treatment for diabetes. Even though we've got actual studies on people with diabetes and their HbA1c improved. So that's a kind of our dilemma, and we can say certain things but not other things. And because like exercise is just so intrinsic to health, we can do so much, but we have to let people join a lot of the dots themselves. We can talk about kind of metabolic fitness, which is in essence your glucose control. But we wouldn't be saying we treat diabetes, even though that's what our studies would suggest, and kind of common sense would suggest as well. When you look at the physiology of what we do and the actual kind of when we monitor what happens to people's blood glucose in real time, so.
Yeah,
I know you're in insurance, Connor. At some stage, we'll go to the insurance companies, and they'll be giving people money back for using our product because The cost of diabetes alone in the US is, like you're saying, as far as it, I mean, half the population is either diabetic or pre-diabetic, and this is just frightening. And
Hmm.
the cost per diabetic per year is something like $9,000 additional dollars in healthcare. So the whole system is being kind of bankrupt by this kind of single metabolic condition. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious of your overall mission. Is it more, hey, whoever wants to use this, maybe you're already in shape and you can use it to be in better shape, or is your mission to try to address some of these chronic conditions or these obesity problems that exist in the United States and to a lesser extent across the world? Um, what
yeah,
is the
we're
goal?
all only a step behind the US, I'm afraid.
Hmm.
So it's kind of a frightening where things are going. Uh, it's a bit like kind of like if you had a treadmill, who would you target it at? One of the so yeah, our mission is to make people healthier and kind of improve mood as well, because exercise does that to you. Uh, Most people actually purchase it because they want to look better, but we can. The ones that give me joy, I have to say, are the ones that kind of can't exercise easily, and regular exercise has failed them. So this could be somebody in a wheelchair, or it could be someone just with arthritis. Like if you have arthritis at the hip, you don't really have much kind of exercise options. Uh, or if you've broken a bone or something like that, you need to maintain your fitness levels while you're injured. Then you can get back running again if that's what you enjoy, and that's fine. But for those who don't really have good options, it's kind of really nice that we can provide Bionic Gym as an option for them. So
Hmm.
that's very much kind of at my heart. And then in terms of, it's easier to sell to people in relation to calorie burn, though, because that's what most consumers want. And it's just a safer area for us as well. Obviously, we could, there's an awful lot of kind of, especially cardiovascular conditions, which we can treat presumably really well. But these require kind of a large amount of studies before we'd be able to kind of really make a song and dance about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking through this a little bit. I'm curious if you've explored, I know in the United States, outside of traditional health insurance, wellness vendors are typically popular, or a large employer will offer a wellness vendor or a wellness benefit to an employee, and I think that could be an option where you'd be less restricted, or trying to get a doctor to prescribe it or say, hey, this can treat diabetes or this can treat high blood pressure. I get it, it's difficult. I don't know if that's ever crossed your mind, approaching
Uh,
wellness vendors from a partnership perspective.
it has been suggested before, and this would be. My understanding is that it needs a particular a particular what is it, documents essentially, which we currently don't have. Um, but it sounds like a good idea, and it'll be a nice way to kind of get on a lot more people. So perhaps I'll follow up on this one. So thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah. And then one other thought I had is I don't know if you look at it this way, but I think people that may need it the most, that perhaps have the worst diet, the worst lifestyle, the ones that have the biggest weight problems may be the most averse to trying something like this. And they say, oh, I don't need it. I don't need exercise. I'm fine how I am. I don't know if you think about that at all. Because I think, as you mentioned previously, you are attracting people that want to lose weight, but they may not be the people with the worst problems. I don't know if that's a fair statement or if you resonate with that.
Uh, Yeah, well, one of the things that kind of certainly resonates is that those who often need it the most, they tend to be least proactive. And, we have some people who they purchase it and they kind of never really intend giving it a good go and a good try. And they kind of, they put it on once and they kind of, oh, maybe I don't like it. But they have an awful lot of other motivational factors and kind of psychological factors involved as well. Um, and once people kind of get hooked on it, it's perfect. But there is this people who don't if they loved exercise, most likely they wouldn't be have this additional weight. Um, People who respond best to us are to the tech are those who were fit in the past. They have a memory of fitness. The body remembers it. They know the sensations. They know they will enjoy the sensations, and they can kind of train up very rapidly with this. Whereas, I don't know, in Ireland, there's lots of people, particularly kind of some overweight women who never really did sports in school. Now it's changing, thankfully, that girls in girls' schools now, sports are much more important and much more valued. But when I was growing up, it wasn't like that. And there's a whole cohort of women who never really exercised intensely, who were never really fit, who could never kind of run properly for a mile or two. And those people do find it much more difficult to progress rapidly with this. And so we tell them kind of go much more slowly, use it at low intensities for long periods of time, and then slowly build up. The other thing in relation to the weight is our product will kind of really only work until to kind of, if the impulses go through the thighs, and the wraps kind of will work to about 33-inch thighs. So if the BMI is kind of over 50, it may not work for them. It may not. They may not be able to get it on, and it's something which we hope to address in the future, because, as I say, these people are people that particularly need the tech. And at some stage I'll implant the device as well, and this will be kind of another option for people. As it will miniaturize everything, or a lot of it, and there'll be components within the body, and we'll just leave them there, and we'll be able to trigger the exercise fine.
Yeah. One other thing I'm curious about is how word of mouth works for you. I would imagine it works pretty well in your favor. And I know that just something from a marketing perspective, that if you have a product that achieves its aim like yours does so effortlessly, I would imagine that word of mouth has caused you to grow relatively quickly or exponentially. I don't know if that has been the case.
Yeah, we certainly have our champions, and it's kind of wonderful. It's kind of, we have a lot of people who kind of just put themselves on camera and say kind of what it does for them, and it's just fabulous. We've also had like an expensive product, and then someone buys one for themselves, and then they buy one for all the family, which is great. And it overcomes all those kind of credibility issues. What we find in terms of the people need to want to use it, though, in the same way as, like, if you give someone a treadmill or a stationary bicycle, they probably won't use it. So they need to want to use it, and that's the key thing for us. And if they want to use it, they'll do great. And we're hoping to kind of, just when you say kind of word of mouth, that we at some stage we want to, when we get our act together a little bit more, we want to kind of create much more social environments for people to use it. If I'm using it with my partner, she uses it at low intensities. But for some reason, when I'm there with her using it, maybe we're watching a movie or something like that, I'll use it much higher intensities than I would otherwise. And I'll get a much better training session in, and I'll be sweating and breathless just watching the movie. But I push myself harder just because there's somebody else there. And so we're kind of hoping that people will kind of train together, and there'll be much more of a social aspect to it as well, even though, like, you don't need it.
So I would assume you exercise outside of using the bionic gym. Is that true?
Not really. I do maybe
Oh, really?
2 minutes of weights a day. Upper body. My the stint takes care of the rest. And I do, if I'm going out to my mother's house, it's 6 miles away, I'll cycle out there. But that's
Okay.
about it.
And so has that always been the case, or did that shift with, hey, I'm using the bionic gym, so I no longer need to go out for a bike ride or run? Curious if
Uh,
that changed.
yeah, I mean, this takes care of all the cardio I need. But I used to play soccer, kind of five-a-side soccer, once a week, but I just kept on getting injured. I love it. Not very good necessarily, but I love it. And but I said I'd have to give it up because every 3 or 4 years you just get a serious injury, which doesn't sound often every 3 or 4 years. But I'm in my 50s now, and so I've had kind of like both my crustates are gone. They've been reconstructed. Uh, I've had my serious injuries kind of repeatedly. I've had traumatic dislocations. I've had my reticular, the bands, kind of collagen bands have been ruptured. My collateral ligaments have been going. And just to keep on piling up the injuries. So I said I'd give it up. But Bionic Gym, it kind of exercises you in quite a neutral position. And so in that way, it's kind of very safe as as an exercise form.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is a part of that time management, right? I mean, you're a founder of a company, you're trying to grow this thing. And I relate to it as if you have a spouse and a dog and children, I mean, and you say, oh, I want to go for an
Yeah,
hour run. Sometimes that's pretty difficult. I mean, is that a big part of it too, to say, hey, this is efficient and convenient, allows me to burn calories, maintain a cardio routine
absolutely.
while I
Yeah,
work, right? Like,
yeah. And I get nothing against other forms of exercise. It's just for me they're inefficient. Uh, but yeah, no, absolutely. I would go down to the gym because I'd enjoy the sauna. That's to be honest. And the sauna
yeah.
gives great benefits, So always go for the sauna in the gym. But yeah, I just don't have the time, so I don't have any gym membership. Uh, but it's yeah, it's nice to have that alternative. Sometimes as I'm cooking, even I, of course, shouldn't say that for legal reasons in case someone drops it. But the I'd be using this in the background as I'm doing other things. Uh,
Hmm. Can we pause on the sauna for a second too? Because I enjoy the sauna at the gym, and I know that it causes your heart rate to increase. Obviously, you sweat. From your perspective, creating this product and also being a physician, I mean, are there similar benefits? I mean, if you're in a sauna and your heart rate goes up, I don't know. I don't feel like it's the same as running, for example, but something's happening, right? Can you speak to the benefits of the sauna a bit?
a little bit. I'm not a specialist in the area, but yeah, obviously it is different to running. And the main thing with kind of and Symbionic Gym would have a lot more in common with running. But the sauna will obviously release heat shock proteins. As the name suggests, heat shock. It's about muscle about. These are proteins that are released when your body temperature rises, particularly the muscles. So that happens during exercise, obviously bionic gym as well. But it also happens with sauna too. Uh, your heart rate will increase partly in response to kind of neurological factors, and also the fact that your blood vessels are dilating, and so there'll be a lot more blood flowing to the skin. And so that in itself will kind of give you the benefits there. The respiratory rate, to my understanding, doesn't kind of quite match that. It doesn't go up in the same way, but certainly the psychological benefits and physiological benefits of saunas are just fabulous. And it appears that they really embed a lot of the benefits you get from a regular a training session as well, if you finish it off by having a sauna. So that's really good. In relation to this, kind of would you use this in a sauna? We don't really recommend it now. Partly the electrodes are made of hydrogels and they'll puff up and all of that. Uh, but yeah, you can sweat a lot with bionic gym. You can also use it in a warm room and sweat more if you want. Um, so Yeah, that's benefits of
Hmm.
sauna. Everybody goes for them. The cardiovascular benefits in particular are enormous, and it does help cement the benefits you get from your training session if you had a training session beforehand.
So I've heard of heat shock proteins. Could you just expand on that a bit? What the benefit of the creation of a heat shock protein is to the body?
Um, I won't, just on the basis that I haven't read up on this recently, and it's not an area I'm a specialist in. I'm a physician, and I understand the physiology of the electrical stimulation very well. But saunas are just a curiosity for me, and
Mm.
and a pleasure rather than anything else.
Okay. No, no, that's fair. Yeah, but I love the sauna as well. Can we back up? I'm curious how the kind of the origin story of Bionic Gym, and if I recall, on your LinkedIn profile, I think you've been at this for quite a few years, trying to, I would assume, perfect the product and bring it to market. So, can you speak to that and what it took to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I never intended setting up a company. It was essentially, this was a last option, and I was working in electrical stimulation, and I was devising some medical products as well. So originally, I suppose I should backtrack even further and say I'm a medical doctor, but I was always very interested in design, and so I'd be doing on the hospital ward rounds. I'd be kind of treating the patients, but also looking at the design of the bed that they're lying on, and kind of seeing if I could improve upon that. They And I was always kind of going to get out and get into medical design and stuff like that. Um, and I was doing some work in electrical stimulation, and I thought the technology was extraordinary, but also underutilized, and it couldn't really deliver on its promise. Um, and I was swimming, and one of the things that happens when you're swimming is in the Atlantic Ocean, in the west of Ireland, it can be very cold, as you can imagine, and I was shivering away. And I had this kind of epiphany, so to speak, to whereby, the connection was made between calorie burning and shivering, and why that's different to other forms of exercise, and why we have the shivering effect. So we obviously shiver to warm up. So we shiver when we're cold and we need to generate heat, and we shiver. But there are particular characteristics about shivering. And it's kind of nature's hack to warm up and essentially burn calories without doing anything. And I thought if we could kind of mimic this and improve upon it, we'd be able to, would really have something wonderful. So how we did it is, so when you shiver, you kind of generally shiver with your big muscles first. So your thigh muscles, then all your legs, and then as you get colder and colder, for myself, it kind of more or less progresses up until even your
Hmm.
teeth are chattering. And two things happen. One is you've seen more and more muscle bulk is coming in, okay? But they're coming in at a similar rate. You're shivering in synchrony, your whole body. Now, there can be superimposed shudders, but that we'll can discuss that another time. But the shivering has a magic kind of frequency. And it's about 7 to 8 hertz. And this is because if you increase the frequency, the calorie burn actually goes down. So if you want to get yourself colder again, you can just slightly increase the tension in your muscles, stop the shivering, and you'll stop a lot of the benefits of shivering, because what the calories are burnt actually in the shortening, lengthening, cycling of these muscles, and shivering is how you maximize shortening and lengthening. And so that's what we do with Bionic Gym. We kind of maximize the shortening and lengthening. And we also target a similar type of muscle fiber that shivering targets. And then we've improved upon it. When you shiver, you'll burn maybe, the equivalent to maybe 3 mets. So you are burning 1 met there, just sitting there, metabolic equivalent. Shivering, you'll burn 2 or 3 times that amount. Um, and you can keep that up for kind of 6 or 8 hours, depending upon your glycogen levels and your fitness levels, etc. That's not enough for us. People, sorry about that.
Oh, that's all
Uh,
right.
That's not enough for us. We want to kind of go to 10 minutes if possible, and we don't want to do the equivalent of walking or slow jogging. We want to be able to go all the way up to running, and we can do that essentially by bringing in more muscle fibers, and that's what we do. We have them contracting at the maximal rate, the rate which will kind of maximize calorie burn, and we do an awful lot of tricks that enable people to kind of tolerate this really easily, and that's how we can kind of maximize where we're going and the calorie burn. And from calorie burn, everything comes from the demand for oxygen, demand for kind of glucose. You need to expel your CO2. You'll have an adrenaline drive, and this will increase the heart rate, etc., etc.
No, that really puts it into perspective for me, and it's interesting to realize that you had the epiphany of shivering, and you're kind of recreating shivering. But I mean, I would obviously you're not cold when you're using bionic gym. It's not as uncomfortable, right? I think generally shivering is relatively uncomfortable, but no, that's very interesting. And I'm curious, can you talk about actually developing the technology of when, okay, you had your epiphany, so you said, okay, I need to develop this technology, and how that changed from your first iteration to where we are today, and then where you see the technology going in the future. I mean, can you continue to improve on bionic gym, or is it kind of reached its final state and that's where it will be into the future?
Good questions. Yeah, so I was with this it's doing electrical stimulation therapy and designing therapies at the time, but the company I was mainly working with had no interest in this. I then went off. I had a software company, as you do, in between, but it then went back and took a position in a university team to drive this technology. And this was in University College Dublin, and we even got some kind of lot of funding from the European Space Agency. And this was to develop the technology further. I knew early on, kind of basically 22, 23 years ago, the technology could be really good and could exercise you really hard. And we'd done some initial studies with a group in the UK as well back then, cardiologists in the UK in Hull. And that showed that kind of it could be actually, we did it, even had it in people with cardiac failure. It was kind of a therapy for the cardiac failure. Cardiac failure at home, don't do this. Not without your doctor's permission anyway. So we knew the technology worked. Then 10 years later, essentially in university, I developed it further. Had a wonderful team there with Brian and Connor and kind of a whole team of them there. We put it on people with spinal cord injury, with COPD, that's kind of lung problems. With people who had obesity, people with diabetes, and then ordinary folk as well, kind of students from the campus, and we just trained them up. We measured their fitness levels beforehand. We gave them kind of maybe 18 sessions of this, measured their fitness levels again, measured what and it improved, of course, and measured the calorie burn that they could burn. And, so what we found was basically all of our groups, with the perhaps exception of very obese women, that's women who have an awful lot, the BMI would have been kind of high 40s, that they had difficulty burning huge amounts of calories, but everybody else could get over the 500 calorie mark, basically, which was great. They needed to be trained up first, obviously, as you'd expect. Back then, we were working with the European Space Agency as well. They were supporting us with funding. And we did one of these kind of parabolic flights with them. So we've tested it in zero gravity, and at some stage we'll be up in the International Space Station, one would hope. But that's a long process. And what else? And so we had all this research, and it really went nowhere. So the project's finished, and everybody moved on, and the technology is kind of quite advanced, so nobody else could really research it, and it just died. I I worked for a while in Berlin in a think tank, a medical device think tank. It was a kind of cardiology company. But all the time back in my mind was, uh, we need to get this product out, and nobody. Eventually, I said, "Well, I'll bring it out myself," and that's why I ended up starting Bionic Gym, because nobody else seemed interested in it. Um, Surprising as it may seem, but anyway.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you have any competition? Are you the only consumer facing product using this technology to, I guess, like you say, exercise on autopilot?
Um, yeah, well, we're the only one, to my knowledge, it's in any way effective. Now, there are a lot of companies, so the technology is well proven in, the technology that's standard is very well proven in rehabilitation settings and stuff like that. And there's also a trend where people combine it with voluntary exercise, and this is excellent, and that can be quite effective as well. So, but in terms of other companies where you can switch it on, watch TV, and it exercises you, the equivalent of running, no, there's nobody else. Uh, and in one sense, it's part of a problem for us, because a lot of people, they see some of the claims and they're suspicious, because
Mm.
a lot of people have been claiming a lot of things about this technology for generations. Uh, and it's kind of, whether, but it really works. Our one really, really works. uh,
Yeah.
we have to show them.
Yeah. I'm looking at your website, right? And I think everything you've told me, yeah, it sounds amazing. And then I see, okay, it's $749, and like I said, how do I know that it works? I mean, are you doing anything to overcome that? I would imagine, right? If you're in a mall, or you're set up somewhere in public where people could try it, that would help improve the credibility. But are you employing any strategies like that or anything else?
It'd be an interesting strategy. We have an adhesive electrodes, though, so for hygiene reasons, some things aren't really kind of possible in that regard.
Mm.
Our Facebook communities have been wonderful. Uh, we've kind of a group of people in there. They're just kind of fabulous, and they've used the product, and they often, people ask questions, and they'll answer,
Mm.
and they're not connected with the company, uh, and people kind of trust them an awful lot more, and kind of see from their experience, and they're real people. Uh, in our kind of UGC, we tend to use only people who actually are using the product. And there's some parts of our ads which obviously have actors, but the parts that are kind of uh, with people kind of sweating, and all genuine, real users. And these are people who kind of just use the product and say, "This is pretty good. It's done good for me. I'll create a little video for them," and
Hmm.
um, that's been wonderful. But just back to your point, yeah, our Facebook communities, we have a women's only community, which is very sweet, and everybody's very supportive. We have a general community, which the men are there as well, so it's a little bit more aggressive. Uh, and then we've got a new community for people with barriers to exercise. So these are people, maybe they've arthritis, or they've an injury, or they're in a wheelchair or something like that, and they need exercise. And uh, and then people can ask them in that group, yeah, I've got this. Well, what can I use it? And then maybe somebody says, yeah, I've got that too.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, like, going back to word of mouth and online, I think can really help you, right? And obviously social
Yeah.
media is huge these days. So I think that's smart to employ those channels. To pivot a little bit, I'm curious. So you mentioned some of your background, that you are a medical doctor by trade, and you've held different positions. You mentioned the think tank in Berlin. I'm curious, as you've shifted to becoming the founder and essentially running Bionic Gym, if that transition has been difficult for you, or if you've kind of always viewed yourself as a leader or a CEO, and you were ready to go. But maybe you can speak to that and what that was like, and if you like being the leader of your company and taking it in the direction you want to take it?
Yeah, it's been difficult,
Okay.
to be honest. I'm probably not an actual CEO. I'd like to think I'm a leader, but not a CEO. I don't have all the all the traits that you'd expect and want of your CEO. I try and make up for it in other ways, but uh, so yeah, I find it really difficult, and I wouldn't be a natural at it. I'm at it because I needed to bring this technology out. It's important for me to kind of maybe set the direction of the company and the values of the company, such that we kind of, we want to do good in the world, and this is important. And this type of tech, we could perhaps position it in a quite an exploitative way if we wanted, or we could exaggerate things, and our marketing people will always try and push the boundaries. So that kind of ethos is very important to me. But actually running the company, I'm good at something else. I'm good at developing the technology, and kind of, and that's where I want to spend my time. At the moment, I'm not. I'm doing kind of, audits, financial audits, and hiring people, and doing a lot of kind of mundane tasks. And so it's not a good use of my talents. Somebody else will do it better, hopefully in the future. And we'll see.
Okay. And so what advice would you have for someone that's similar to you? Maybe that they're the expert in their particular field, very technically adept, but they want to start a company using their expertise, but like you said, they don't want to run the company. What would you advise someone in a similar
Don't
situation to
do
you?
it.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I only mean that kind of half jokingly. Um, you really need a partner who you respect, really enjoy being with, and is better at the business side of things than you'll be. And that's much easier when you're younger, because all your friends and are in a similar space, and they probably have the freedom to jump out by themselves, and it's much less of a risk. As you get on in age, like all my friends have mortgages, and they have serious jobs, and they can't kind of take a punt. So it becomes more difficult. But yeah, get a partner that will take care of the business side and do it better than you can. Otherwise, you'll be second guessing them. So and if you can get kind of, we didn't go for any VC money. Not that we wouldn't have taken it. It was that kind of, when I started the company, it was kind of like a maverick inventor with this kind of product that might be regulated. Chances of success are zero, and nobody would be interested in investing, at least here in Ireland. In an Irish context, it'd be very difficult to get any investors. So yeah, I eventually went down a kind of crowdfunding route. So we had what turned out to be an extraordinarily successful kind of Indiegogo campaign. And that kind of gave us initial kind of capital to get the initial product up and running.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Well, I mean, maybe besides the don't do it, but make sure you have a partner, right, that complements your skill set if you're the technical founder with the technical expertise. So as we maybe round out here, can you speak to what your kind of long-term vision for Bionic Gym is? If you look 5-10 years down the road, where do you want to be? Do you want everyone or a good portion of the population aware and using this product? Or, I mean, what do you see for the future?
Yeah. I mean, half the American population are already pre-diabetic or diabetic. People need this product and need this technology. The alternatives out there aren't good, and So the technology itself needs to evolve and become better again. And particularly, I think where it will kind of really transform a lot of people's lives who don't have good alternatives and who maybe don't have some of the other requirements for kind of a good, healthy lifestyle will be when it becomes kind of implanted. That is around 5 years away, though, because anything inside the body, the regulations are horrendous. And I also need to do a bit more research on that. But yeah, no, we'd expect this technology to kind of become mainstream. Those kind of ad belts, I think a lot of people have them in the cupboard. Hopefully, much more people have this tech, except they'll be using this in their everyday lives. Um, some people will just use it when they can't get to the gym. That's fine. Some people will use it when they're injured, and that's fine. And then the other people like me that kind of, their lifestyle doesn't really enable them to do much else. So they might as well do this and kind of keep fit and healthy this way. We've kind of a huge amount of on our kind of research program. We want to kind of pivot a little bit more towards kind of at least our research towards a lot more glucose management, metabolism, diabetes. It is a major problem of health issue of society at the moment. And we've got something really good to offer there, but we need to do an awful lot more research and publish it as well, probably, in order to be really taken seriously by the wellness providers you mentioned earlier, Connor, and the health insurance companies as well. Hopefully within 5 years, it will be on insurance lists and people will get it for free if they meet certain criteria. Maybe people will pay you to exercise because it saves the insurance companies money if you actually exercise. So and this is a nice way of tracking it.
Yeah, no, I think it has a lot of potential. And obviously, I didn't know a lot about it before we jumped on here and started recording. So I'll say I'm major in favor of it. You kind of blown my mind a bit, but I think, right, from my perspective, if you treat me as one of your potential customers, I see your website, I'm like, I'm skeptical, but then you explain how it works, and I know because I've exercised pretty regularly for years, and I know cardio can be a pain. You don't always want to do cardio, and if you're someone that wants to be in shape, you're always saying, how can I burn that extra 400 or 500 calories? Because that really does kind of compound over time. And it becomes so much easier to say, okay, I can maintain a lower body fat percentage relatively effortlessly. So yeah, I'm very impressed. I'll just say that. So I mean, I wish you the best of luck. And you just mentioned how there's a plethora of opportunities as you continue to innovate and expand. So again, best of luck. I will give you the floor as we close out here. If people are intrigued, where can people find out more about Bionic Gym? Maybe order one for themselves if they think it's a good fit for them. Any
At
final words?
bionicgym.com.
All right, they're easy enough.
And everything there. We're also on Facebook as well. You can find the forums there, and you'll see how other people experience it. And so we've 20,000 people, I think, in our different forums and Facebook, and so you'll be able to get a kind of good feel for it. Its advantages and some disadvantages as well. So wonderful product. We would like all your custom, and more importantly, we'd like you to benefit by using it, hopefully regularly, and keep on using it and get those benefits of exercise. And to yourself, Connor, just thanks for the opportunity to talk here. It's good luck with your podcast. They seem to be great episodes you're putting up, so many thanks.
Yeah, thanks again, Lewis. And I'll put the link to your website in the description so people can find it down there. And again, thank you for taking the time and take care.
Take care. Thanks.